What is the purpose of fasting? There are several reasons why believers should fast. The benefit of fasting is both physical and spiritual. Fasting should not be seen as a punishment or suffering, but as a discipline. The first time Jesus spoke about fasting was in Matthew 6, verse 16 to 18. Moreover, when you fast, do not be like the hypocrites, with a sad countenance. For they disfigure their faces, that they may appear to men to be fasting. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. But you, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, so that you do not appear to men to be fasting, but to your Father, who is in the secret place. And your Father, who sees in secret, will reward you openly. It is amazing that Jesus had to address the issue of our motives when fasting. Although fasting is a rewarding spiritual exercise, it has principles that must be followed for us to enjoy the full benefits of it. As great as the blessing in fasting is, it is possible for one to fast incorrectly. While many people fast to be seen by the world as a good Christian, Jesus tells us that those who make it known to the world in order to be admired have already received their reward, which is to be praised by others. Jesus warned us never to fast the same way hypocrites do. God does not accept hypocrisy. He does not like it when people seek for honor from what is intended to glorify God. In Luke 18, verse 10 to 14, Jesus gave the story of a Pharisee and a publican who went to the temple to pray. The Pharisee boasted before the Lord that he fasts twice every week, and that he gave alms and paid tithe, but he never returned home justified. He fasted as a hypocrite, so that he would have the reason to boast before the Lord. We often fast only when we need something from God, but fasting should be done on a regular basis, and not just to receive things, but to also seek God, to draw closer to Him. Our fasting must be centered on finding God, and not just the things of God. The God of things should be more important to us than the things of God. We shouldn't misplace our priorities when fasting. Fasting should be a discipline that helps us get closer to God. When fasting is God-ordained and God-centered, it yields a great blessing in our lives. One of the purposes of fasting is to help us discover the will of God for our lives. Before Jesus began his early ministry, Matthew 4 verse 1 says, "He was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, where he fasted and prayed for 40 days and 40 nights. He knew what God wanted him to do. He listened to the Spirit of God." Only after fasting and praying did Jesus begin his ministry. No wonder he returned from the wilderness in the power of the Spirit. Luke 4 verse 14, "Then Jesus returned in the power of the Spirit to Galilee, and news of him went out through all the surrounding region." When we fast, we become sensitive to the will of God for our lives. Fasting increases our spiritual sensitivity. It places us on the path to discovering God's will for our lives. Acts 13 verse 1 and 2 says, "Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon that was called Niger, and Lucius of Cyrene and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch and Saul. As they ministered to the Lord and fasted, the Holy Ghost said, Separate me Barnabas and Saul for the work whereunto I have called them. Jesus had appeared to Saul on his way to Damascus while he was going to persecute God's people. During that encounter, Saul gave his life to Christ and was told all that God would use him to accomplish on earth. However, he never stepped into the full scope of his ministry until he and some other prophets and teacher fasted and prayed before the Lord. The apostolic calling of Barnabas and Saul was confirmed when they fasted and prayed. One of the purposes of fasting is to discover God's ultimate purpose for your life. Again, fasting helps us to overcome sin. It helps us to develop spiritual strength to resist temptation. When we fast, we become more sensitive to the things of God. We are more careful in our actions, thoughts, and words when we are fasting. Fasting makes our spirit to develop mastery over the desires of our flesh. Whereas the desires of our flesh are sinful, the longing of the Spirit is for righteousness. Fasting puts a high level of discipline on our flesh. However, it does not mean that we punish ourselves when we fast. There is a vast difference between discipline and punishment. Our flesh is subdued and brought under the governance of the Spirit of God each time we fast. Therefore, fasting helps us to grow in a holiness and consciousness of God. It helps us to resist temptation and stand for truth and righteousness at all costs. Fasting does not shield us from temptation, but it supplies us with strength to overcome it. Jesus overcame the devil with the word of God after the days of his fasting were over. Our spiritual strength is recharged when we go for a retreat and fast to the Lord. You see, fasting does not help God. Rather, it helps us. There are several believers who think that when they fast, God will have compassion on them and be moved to answer their prayers. Well, it is true that God rewards sacrifice and self-denial. However, fasting does not bring God to the notion of blessing us, because it is the will of God for all believers to be blessed. Fasting helps the believer to become sensitive to sin and to be sensitive to the Spirit. Therefore, when our consciousness of sin is high, we can respond more to the Holy Spirit, and we begin to bear the fruits of the Spirit, such as self-control. You will never find someone who fasts and prays regularly that will practice sin willfully. Fasting and prayer teaches us self-control, which is one of the fruits of the Spirit.